Yep. Hey, Anthony Melchiori. Great to see you.
I'm going to take the physical challenge.
Yeah, baby.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hey, everybody. How you doing, Anthony Melchiori?
I'm doing well. And the reason I said take the physical challenge is because we're going to have a special guest on. And it's so funny because you said he's not in the green room yet. I was like, that can't be because this man has never been late to any. He's going to be 20 minutes early to his funeral.
Yeah.
He's never ever been late for anything. So he's having technical issues because the link you sent him was the wrong one.
You mean the link that I only sent just now? I would blame other people. Leave me out of this. All right, everybody. Before we get started, I want to share the good news. My cat came back, so I'm very excited about that. I found George.
So bring me, give us the details.
I know you all want to follow the cat saga over here, but I went out into the garage because I was dealing with the trash and all of that kind of stuff, and I heard a little meow meow, and I saw him hanging out in the back of the garage, all freaked out. Managed to get him back in the house, so he's happy to be home.
Did you hug on him?
He was too freaked out, and then I gave him some food, and he ate the whole damn can almost. So we're very excited to have George return to the fold over there.
So now, what happens to prevent George from leaving again? Nothing. He just won't leave.
Nothing. He's a cat, and he's not a very bright one, so he might make that same mistake again. There's nothing I could do about it. I was very upset about this, but I mean, really, it's his choice as to what he wants to do.
Did he tell you where he went?
I asked him, but he just kept looking at me all weird and crazy eyed. So I don't know. Meanwhile, one thing I did talk to George about is George said to me, Glenn, I'm interested in investing in a hotel. And I said, well, why don't you talk to the good folks over at Radisson Hotels America? Because they've got great brands to invest in. They got Radisson Red, Radisson Blue. They've got Country Inns and Suites. And of course, the mothership brand Radisson. Talk to Phil Hugh over there. Great company, great investment. Again, that's RadissonHotelsAmericas.com/EN-US/development. All right, Mark is still not here.
Let me see what he's saying.
Yep. Yeah, Colleen, maybe. Although I do believe
it says he can't get in.
I have no idea why that would be the case. Could you find out what browser he's using? He should have been instructed to use Google Chrome browser.
It says your links are all invalid.
Yeah, that is not correct because we use the same exact link to get in. It must be a browser issue. If you guys want any more interested tech talk over here, just let us know. We're happy to do that. So while Anthony's dealing with that, I would like to let everybody know, you wait 11 months and good things can finally happen. If you recall, Anthony, at the beginning of 2021, I said, hey, I'm really super excited. I'm going to be featured on Fish Sirius XM radio on a show they have called Crowd Control. Where
Glenn, I'm gonna drop off for 1 second.
Yep. All right. Hey, Suzanne, why don't you talk to me for a little while? Let me tell you this story over here while they're getting this all figured out. All right. So, Suzanne, this is before you joined us, but last December, I got accepted to do my own show on Sirius XM radio for an hour on the Fish radio there, right? And I picked my favorite songs and I talk a little bit and stuff like that, right? So I submitted it on January 11th. Never heard from them again. Tried to get in touch with them. No respect. Nothing for poor little old Glenn man over here. I don't know.
That's the way the world is working.
Maybe they're like, Glenn, you've got 4 cats. You don't really deserve to be on Crowd Control. Well, I got an email yesterday. Apparently my show's airing tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Sirius XM channel 29. So I'm super excited about doing that.
Exciting.
It'll be on Saturday at noon as well. Saturday the 18th at noon. Now, if y'all are listening to it, remember I recorded it a year ago, so I might have said some stuff in there that will now look completely old, outdated, and irrelevant. So I don't know what to think. So Suzanne, you excited if we get today's guest on to have him on the show?
I am so excited. I wore my holiday attire with as many food items that I could do that was like unwrapped.
Yeah. Oh, baby. All right, we got to well, I love that pun. We got him backstage. As soon as he gets set, we will bring him on. I'm super excited about this. Somebody I really respect from television, Mr. Marc Summers. How are you, sir?
I am beyond stressed. I hate when I'm late for anything. And for the last, let's see, I'm going to tell you how long it's been. 40 minutes I've been trying to get into you guys.
I
apologize.
What was the issue, Mark? Because everybody's dying to find out. They're like, what's going on? Was it a browser issue? That was my prediction.
Well, I have Chrome. I tried Chrome, and every time I would hit that link, it would say, whoops, no such thing here.
So
Please
bizarre.
download StreamYard. And I went around and around and around. And, Anthony knows I'm a mess now, because for me to be, early is on time is late,
right.
Kind of situation. So I'm a little stressed, but
so let me, I was going to tell the story as you were coming in, but you came in a little early. So the first time I met Mark, first of all, it's wonderful to see you, my friend. I miss you. The first time I met Mark was we were pitching the show, and somebody said, well, Marc Summers' production company is interested in taking a look at it and talking to you. And literally, I freaked out. I was like, what? Okay. So we were meeting at the Algonquin, which to me is my home turf. So I'll know I'm comfortable. And I didn't know he was a hotelier. He's a real hotelier. He loves hotels. So I get there. I think our meeting was, I'm going to say 9. Okay. It was like 8:39. No, it was earlier than 9, because I was like, oh, earlier than 9? It was 8:30. I get there at probably 10 after 8, which I'm like, okay, I'm 20 minutes early. So I see from the back of his head, I said, I think that's Marc Summers. So I walk in, I'm like, holy shit, he's earlier than me. And I sit down, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. He goes, that's okay, you're early. No, you didn't say you're early. He's like, no, I was here. I've been here for a half hour. I'm like, but our meeting wasn't until 8:30. And then you said to me, early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable.
Exactly.
I say that all the time. So when I asked Glenn, it was 12 o'clock. I said, where's Glenn? So I figured they told you to come on at 12:15, but you'd still be in the green room knowing you. So yes, it is very, very unusual for you to be late.
So maybe we could use this as inspiration for the next show that you produce. Maybe it could be on finding your Zen self in stressful situations.
I think so. Oh my God.
You don't need any introduction, but what people don't understand, I'll give you. I was on a plane the other day, and there's I watch documentaries all the time. So I'm watching a documentary. What is it called? Orange
Years.
Orange what?
The Orange Years.
The Orange Years. It's all about the development of Nickelodeon. And lo and behold, who is the first person that they interview and talk about the Orange Years? So why don't you talk about? So you obviously were pivotal in helping develop Nickelodeon, but talk about, I'm doing a commencement speech in Florida this week, and I'm talking to young people about what it takes. And you and I have had these conversations ad nauseum, and I've learned a lot from you, and probably half the speech is probably written because of the things I learned from you. So you started in a family that made it very easy for you to be in Hollywood. They gave you your first job, and your first interview was a family friend, and it was that easy for you, correct?
Well, I was at a wedding.
That's the opposite.
Yeah. Nothing's easy, Yeah, the old thing, the harder you work, the luckier you get. From the time I landed in Los Angeles until I got my first real job that turned into something was 13 years. And I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, how dedicated are you, and how bad and how passionate are you about what you want to do? I had one friend who I went to college with. I had been out here maybe 12 or 18 months and was telling about the struggles. And he said, I'm going to come out, give it a try for 6 months. And if it doesn't work, I'm just going to go home. And I said, don't bother.
Yeah. 6 months is nothing.
You can't do anything in 6 months. Yeah. And every now and then somebody breaks through. Jay Leno came out from Boston and kind of hit the ground running and was an instantaneous hit.
Well, that's because he spent years refining his craft before he even got there.
That's the thing. Dave Letterman was a broadcaster in Indianapolis doing talk shows and radio and this and that. So when he came out here, he hit the ground running. It was an instant hit after 10 years of history. I suppose Freddie Prinze may be the only person I know who was a young kid comic, came out and yes, you have it. Yeah, your hand up, Mr. Melchiori.
There's one other person that's first show was a hit.
Who's that? You? Yes, but you did 25 years before that, man.
Yes, I did.
You know, I mean, yeah, because you're great at what you do, and you know, you have all the knowledge and all that other kind of stuff. But it's the background, it's the history, you can't stop. You know, people are always saying to me, "Why do you always juggle 7 balls?" And I always say, "Because if 4 of them drop, I have 3 other going."
Yes.
And most people aren't willing to put in the time or the work to get this stuff done.
Yeah, and you're relentless. And I'll be honest with you, because we have a really good relationship. People say to me all the time, Marc Summers is such a fun guy. He looks like such a nice guy. You said it to me, Glenn, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said, what a nice guy. I was like, you don't want to be on the wrong side of Marc Summers.
Well, I don't want to be on the wrong side of you, but it doesn't mean you're not a nice guy.
Yeah,
too.
but you've seen it, right? So you've been behind the scenes, and you know my heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I say what I say, and I mean what I say.
That's right.
But I'm a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Mark, I would say you're similar. You're a very nice person, but you don't tolerate mediocrity.
You know, don't tell me you're going to do something, and then, you know, when I show up, you know, it's not happening. I don't understand. I have a good friend of mine who was just got rid of his place in Boston and was going to move up to Maine. And these people said, you know, you can have the place. And he called this week and said, so I'm moving in on Saturday. They went, oh no, we gave it to somebody else. Well, when were you going to call him and tell him you were going to give it to somebody else? You know, people just don't think. People point to COVID for everything now. Well, because of COVID is the first sentence ahead of everything today. You didn't get your delivery because of COVID. The doctor can't see you because of COVID. You can't do anything because of COVID. It's BS, man. You know, just, you know, I used to have this sign above my 7th grade shop class at Mr. Cubitt's class, and it said, work your plan and plan your work.
Right.
You got to do that, but you can't depend on people. And that's what you have to learn. Even though somebody says they're going to do something, don't buy into it.
Right. Until it's actually done. And when people, a lot of times, Mark, I feel like they have good intentions sometimes, but they just don't even get to it. But in your world, it's a lot more complicated than that. So how then did you manage to break through? How did you find the tenacity within you to not give up until you made it going? Because to get back to what you said, you got to have those 7 balls in the air juggling, right?
And Glenn, that word tenacity, the word tenacity, he invented it. That is the greatest word to describe him, tenacity. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
Well, for whatever reason, and I do not know why I feel this way, but I never accepted the word no. If somebody told me no, I went, okay, great. Then I'll just figure out another way to get there. Yeah. You know, the most anti-Semitic people in Hollywood are other Jews. And I went into a meeting once with a Jewish person at NBC, an executive, and said, your nose is too big, and nobody's ever going to, my real name is Mark Berkowitz, and nobody's ever going to hire a guy by the name of Berkowitz. So change your name and change your nose and come back and see me. Okay. Right. And here was my feeling. This guy's not going to be here in 6 months. So I'll just wait for the new guy to come in and I'll go talk to him. And that's exactly what happened. Okay. But, you know, when I started auditioning for the Comedy Store, rejection is 98% of what we do. Now, I was lucky enough to get on the first time I auditioned to become a regular at the Comedy Store. Not everybody is that lucky. I auditioned for the Merv Griffin show 10 times.
Oh my goodness.
Never got on.
Yeah.
But I kept going back. And this horrible producer used to make me go into his office and do my act in front of him and not react. And one day, while I'm in the middle of doing my act in his office, the phone rings and he starts talking on the phone while I'm doing my act. Okay. And the question becomes, what kept me going?
Yeah.
I guess I wanted it so bad.
Do you remember that guy's name by chance?
I'm just trying to remember the guy.
Is his name Jeffrey?
No, it's not Jeffrey.
The reason I know is because I write a book with an older guy. He's in his 70s, and he was a producer on Merv Griffin.
Oh, really? Yeah. This guy must be.
But if you could do me a favor, Mark, if you can go back, one of my favorite stories is the story of you trying out for Double Dare. Like it came down to so talk about that. I think that's a great story.
So I never got the initial phone call to audition for the show. I had a friend, Dave Garrison, who was a ventriloquist, and we both grew up in Indiana. And he got the phone call, come and audition.
Oh my God, hold on. David Garrison just came up in conversation with me and a buddy this weekend, right? Forget Married with Children. We were talking about It's Your Move.
Different Dave Garrison.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, they always get confused.
So cool.
I know what you're talking about. And so he called me up and said, you know what? I don't think I want to be in front of the camera anymore. I want to become a producer. Why don't you go to this audition instead of me?
Oh,
So I went, and they said, Dave Garrison. I said, my name is Marc Summers, but can I audition instead of him? And they went, sure. Now, in this day and age, I don't even think you could do that, but this was summer of 86.
right.
I went in and did my audition, and here was my modus operandi. I always wrote down the names of every person who was behind that casting, table. And so I got the exec producer's name, and I got the casting director's name, and I got their phone numbers. There was no email per se back then, so I just was, trying to get as much as I could. And I auditioned. I got a phone call back to audition again 2 weeks later. I got 3 callbacks, and it was the middle part of August when I realized that the show was going to start shooting in a few weeks. So I called Mike Klinghoffer and I said, hey, it's Marc Summers. He said, funny, we're talking right now because your name just came up. I said, well, where are we? Did you hire anybody to do the show? And he goes, it's between you and another guy. And we just don't know what to do. And the problem is when we did the auditions, we used grownups as kids, and we don't know if you're good with kids or not. And I said, I have kids. And he goes, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. I said, well, I used to be a magician. I perform for kids. He goes, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. So I said, well, I got an idea. He said, what's that? I said, why don't you fly me and whoever this other guy is back to New York, put us in the studio with kids, run the show, and let the best man win. He said, I'll call you back in an hour. Call me back in an hour. He said, what are you doing over Labor Day? I said, I think I'm coming to New York and I'm doing another audition. He said, you're right. So they flew us to New York. I did my audition first. I left the studio. The other guy came in. He did his audition. He left the studio. The next day, the phone rings. He says, congratulations, you're the host of Double Dare. And I said, well, you auditioned from what I was told, 1,000 people in New York, 1,000 in LA. It came down to the 2 of us. Why did I get the job? And he said, well, reality says that you were both about the same. But at the end of his audition, he looked at the camera and said, is that it? Or do you guys want me to do something else? And I said, we'll be back with more Double Dare right after this. And because I threw it to commercial, they thought that was more professional. It changed my life.
That literally brings tears to my eyes. It literally does. Every time you tell me that story, because that's it. That's life. That story, if everyone listening, please go call a college student. Go call somebody who's struggling. That changed his life. You know, there's a moment, the moment I met Leo Rossi because he dropped a script, and that changed my life. You and I stayed friends for a very, very long time, and that's changed my life because you give me a lot of good advice. Those are the moments. It's not the moment that you're really thinking about. It's not the moment or all the preparation that you've done. It's that either you got it or you don't. And that said, you got it.
Well, also, Anthony, keep in mind that, I weaned myself on game shows from the time I was 6 years old. I would sit myself in front of the TV, and I used to watch Bob Barker as well as many other people. And I always knew that when you were done with something on a show, you threw it to commercial. So my instincts kicked in and said, we're done. Let's go to commercial. And so I didn't have to think about it.
Why did you just say at the end of the thing, and don't forget to spay and neuter your pets? You got the job right that moment.
Did you know Freddie Prinze? I want to go back to Freddie Prinze because I was always intrigued by him.
I started at the Comedy Store in '76, and Freddie was there before me. And so, no, I did not.
So did you get to meet Mitzi?
Oh, I knew Mitzi very well. I went to her funeral for God's sake.
Hold on. Mitzi Shore was the owner of the Comedy Store. You might know her as the mother of Pauly Shore, who was famous on MTV way back in the day around this period.
And I listen to Joe Rogan all the time, right? Some of his shows I know people don't like, and I shut those off, the ones I don't agree with. But regardless, I'm a big Joe Rogan fan, and he talked about probably about a year ago about being named a regular at the Comedy Store. So when you just said I was named as a regular at the Comedy Store, that's a throwaway to me. I don't know what that means until I listened to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was a champion jiu-jitsu. He made $100 million being a podcaster. He was on Double Dare, not Double Dare. He was on that show. What was that show?
Wishes he was on Double Dare.
What was that show? What was that show?
Reality show.
Anyway, he's been on a lot of shows. He's been on sitcoms and all that. Fear Factor. So he's made his money. He's been very successful. He bawled like a baby when he talks about Mitzi Shore and being called a regular. He said to this day, there has been no greater gift that he's been given than being asked to be a regular at the Comedy Store. Why is that the Hall of Fame?
Well, Mitzi made and broke careers throughout her time on this planet. And she was in the right place at the right time. She was married to a guy by the name of Sammy Shore. Sammy Shore was the opening act for Elvis for many years. Just a side note, Colonel Parker, who was the manager of Elvis, always felt that you had to hire the least funny person before Elvis would come out. He had Jackie, I'm trying to think, Jackie Kahane was another comic. There was a review of Jackie Kahane once, and it said Jackie Kahane is the worst comic in the country. And so his feeling was that the audience would get so angry with the bad act before him that when Elvis came out, they would love him even more. That was Colonel Parker's philosophy.
Wow.
So Sammy did that for a number of years. And Sammy was an interesting guy, and he's the one who started the Comedy Store. The story goes he and Missy weren't necessarily getting along. He wanted to stay home and not travel as much, and he opened the Comedy Store. And I was there long before Mitzi got it in the divorce, and it was a bunch of old comics who didn't have anything better to do or much going on, and then some new guys started to break through. And then it started to become, after the divorce and Mitzi took over, what it became. Comedy was hot. Johnny moved to the West Coast, and to be on the Tonight Show would make or break a career. And I grew up, idolizing Johnny Carson, first starting doing magic, and then I started doing stand-up. And so the dream was, I was sitting in my college dorm room at Graham Junior College in Boston, Massachusetts in 1972, and a young comic comes on by the name of Alan Bursky, who might have been 19 or 20 years old, same age I was when I was going to college. And he was at the time the youngest comedian ever to be on the Tonight Show. And I thought, well, Jesus, if he can do that, I can do it. So I was focused. I was going to move to Los Angeles, and I was going to not only become a game show host, but I was going to be a stand-up comic on the Tonight Show and maybe someday take over the Tonight Show. And I didn't have an act. I had a corny act. In fact, there was a guy by the name of Bob Orban who wrote really bad material for up-and-coming performers, and he put it in books, so everybody was doing the same material. And I remember I went to an audition once in Boston, basically doing everything out of a Bob Orban joke book, and a New York guy came up to me and said, "Nice Bob Orban material." And I realized that I might have been a big wig in Indianapolis, Indiana, doing what I did, but when you got into real show business with people who understood the industry, you can't do crap. You got to be good. You got to be funny. And so I took my semi-interesting, semi-entertaining corny magic act to California and started working as a regular at the Magic Castle. And I was opening at a place called the Laugh Stop in Newport Beach, California for Gallagher, if you remember Gallagher.
Of course.
And
if you guys don't remember Gallagher, he became famous by smashing foods and stuff.
Yeah, smashing watermelons.
But also a genius.
Yeah,
he wrote Gallagher too.
But very. And he said to me once, he said to me, "Hey, Berkowitz, you're an asshole." I said, "Why is that?" He says, "How much they paying you to go out there and do those card tricks?" And I said, $150 a week. He goes, "Yeah, because if you were stand-up comics and got rid of all that crap, you'd get twice that." So I said, "Wait a minute, if I open for you as a comic, I get 300, but as a magician, I get 150. He goes, "Yeah, that's right." So I said, "I got to get rid of these props." Yeah. And I started to hang out at the Comedy Store. And through hanging out at the Comedy Store, I met people who started to help me write. And then I kept developing that material. And after a year of rehearsing at every bad club I could go to and, work in the Magic Castle a couple times a week, I had the guts to go and audition for Mitzi. And, I got off stage and she said, "Call me on Monday. I'll start putting you on regularly." So, and the biggest—
Joe Rogan have the exact same impression. So
everybody does Mitzi.
That was her.
I'll tell you this: the biggest honor. I've accomplished some pretty cool things in my life, but if you got your name painted on the wall outside the Comedy Store, you knew you made it. And one day I walked by there, and I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that every now and then, maybe once or twice a year, I drive by, I park the car, and I just go look at it for about 5 minutes.
Your name's still up there?
Still up there.
That's freaking awesome.
Oh my God. I never even knew that you worked at Comedy Store.
Oh, yeah. I worked it for years.
Dude, wow. I never knew that.
I had no idea you did stand-up comedy. No wonder why you were able to so seamlessly go into TV doing what you did, because you already understood the improv. You already understood who you were. Yeah.
I kind of want to, because I've never had this conversation with you. So I want to really research that. I want to really talk about that, because again, I wouldn't know this, and this wouldn't be a good interview on this subject unless I listened to what Joe Rogan was saying. And he literally puts her at the top of the list of making comedy what it is today. She said there's nobody bigger, he says, in comedy.
Friedman at the Improv as well.
He said, this is what he said, that there's nobody bigger that's not a comic but Mitzi, and then he puts Bob number 2.
Well, Bud had a whole different point of view. You know, Bud loved Richard Lewis. He loved Andy Kaufman. He had a more, I don't know, distinct point of view of comedy. Mitzi, you know, first she'd want you to be a bartender or work the front door.
Oh,
and stuff.
yeah, definitely the guy at the front door. And then you get promoted inside and you kind of have to have all those relationships and prove yourself both in short 5-minute sets on the stage and as a human being, right?
Yeah, I was never going to do that. I just refused to do that. Not that she ever asked me to do that. But here's what I realized quickly, Anthony, and that was I wasn't that funny. Okay. I would watch. Jay was already a star. Leno was already a star by the time I got there. Letterman was already a star by the time I got there. Robin Williams came in shortly afterwards. And I realized quickly, I'm not that funny.
Yeah, right.
But here's what I am. I'm good at being Marc Summers. And so maybe I should pursue the hosting thing instead of the stand-up comic thing. And here's the other thing I'm going to tell you. In order to get a job, at least in my industry, you got to lie. Okay. For instance, I was a page on Price is Right, on Mary Tyler Moore, on All in the Family, on Good Times. I have endless stories I could tell you about all those things. But I loved going to the Mary Tyler Moore show and the Bob Newhart show when I was working as a page, because there was a man by the name of Lorenzo Music who did the best
music. He was but he also he also produced a whole lot of stuff as well, right?
And he was also Carlton the doorman on Rhoda.
Yes.
And so I went into his office because I had huge gonads and said to him, "You do the most amazing warm-up. I've been a page for the last 9 months and nobody's funnier than you." And I said to him, God knows why, I do warm-ups. He goes, "Really? What shows have you worked on?" So I started naming shows that I had never worked on in my entire life. And he said to me, "Well, I can't do these all the time. Why don't you give me your phone number? And if I can't do it, I'll call you." Okay, here's my phone number.
That's awesome.
The next week, Lorenzo calls me and says, "We're doing a show called Doc. It stars Barnard Hughes, who's a Broadway actor. Can you do it for me?" Sure. Now I am.
How do you figure out how to do it then?
Well, I had no idea what I was doing. I had never done a warm-up in my entire life. So I start writing down notes and pages and gathering magic tricks. And I went out and did my first warm-up. At the end of the night, Grant Tinker, who ran Mary Tyler Moore's company, was married to Mary, came down the staircase, hugged me, and said, "That's the most amazing warm-up job I have ever seen in my entire life."
Holy crap.
I couldn't even tell you what I did. Okay.
But also, guys, he was chairman and CEO of NBC in the 80s as well. This dude is the real deal. That's amazing.
And so I started to realize maybe I can do this. So the Mac Davis show was going on at NBC, and I wanted to be a writer on the Mac Davis show. I had never written anything, but I went and auditioned. The exec producer, or the head writer producer, was a guy by the name of Danny Simon. His brother happened to be Neil Simon. And so I wrote this stuff for Danny, and he said to me, "This is really not good." And I said, "Well, I tried." I said, "Who's doing your warm-up?" He goes, "I don't know. You want to do it?" So he said, "Yeah." Well, I started doing the warm-ups on the Mac Davis show. The exec producers then went on and did a show called Shields and Yarnell. I went and did
that was Mime, wasn't it?
Yeah. And these guys opened doors for me and kept doing shows. They did a Bette Midler special. They hired me to do the Bette Midler special. So whatever shows they did, they hired me. I started to get this reputation. And I'll tell you, this is a really gutsy move, Anthony. You're going to love this story. So I was sort of an extra on the TV show Soap season 1. And there was a guy who was doing the warm-ups. I won't mention him because he's a friend of mine, but I noticed that he wasn't doing a particularly good job when I was there in year 1. So the first season gets done, and I call Tony Thomas, Danny Thomas's son, out of the blue in July and said, "Hey, I'm just wondering, are you guys keeping with the same warm-up guy, or are you going to make a change?" He goes, "Funny you bring that up. We're not sure what we're going to do. Are you interested?" "Yes." "What shows have you done?" Well, now I had a resume of shows I'd done. He said, "We're going to do a run-through with an audience this Friday. Why don't you come and do the warm-up on Friday? And if we like you, you get the season. And if not, see ya." So I went in, did it for the next 3 years. I was the warm-up guy on Soap. Soap was the hottest show in town. Every person in Hollywood would come to Soap, including producers and network people. Now, it's funny. When I was doing Soap on this stage, the stage to the left of me was Barney Miller. Dave Letterman was doing the warm-up on Barney Miller. And to the right of me was a show called Bosom Buddies. Bob Saget was doing
goodness.
Bosom Buddies. And next thing I know, there was a guy by the name of Gary Shandling who was doing the warm-up on Alice, and they wanted to get rid of him. The exec producers came to watch me on Soap, and the next 8 years, I did the warm-ups on Alice. So my schedule basically was on Tuesdays, I would do Alice. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I would do a show called Hour Magazine in the afternoon. Wednesday and Thursday nights, I would do Star Search. Friday nights, I would do Soap. When Soap got canceled, I would do Webster. When Webster got canceled, I would do What's Happening Now. And on weekends, I did a game show called Anything for Money with a guy by the name of Fred Travalena. And on Mondays, I had off. And so I was making six figures doing warm-ups when nobody knew who I was and what was going on.
And that's a whole lot of cash back in that era, too.
I am literally dumbfounded. I never knew that part of your career. We never had that conversation. But again, we talk about weeds growing through concrete. That's who you are. I wanted that is fascinating to me that you were able to. Everybody we talk to on the show, it seems like they squirm their way in, right?
Yeah.
And we were just talking to someone had not that story. That story is amazing, but again, squeeze them way in. But I want to go back to something which is because you have. I'm not going to say that part first. You'll probably say it just telling the story. When you're at the Comedy Store, your dream is to be on Carson. Now, the Comedy Store was really spring training for Carson. That's how you got on Carson, because his talent agents would come and would pick you and say, you can get on Carson, right?
Jim McCauley would come and sit in the audience. And here's the deal. Once they see you bomb, they can never see you score. So if you go out there and McCauley's in the audience and you bomb, you'll never do the Tonight Show.
So your name is on the Comedy Store, which is literally blows my brains out of my head. Tell me the second you got the call, you knew that somebody was interested in putting you on Tonight Show. I want to know that moment.
Well, your dream is to get on that show, More Than Life Itself. The first show I did stand-up comedy on was a show called Norm Crosby's Comedy Shop.
Sure.
And I did that. I must have been 26 years old, something like that. And talk about how funny show business is. They always would pick one comedian to have a celebrity introduce him. And so they chose Dick Martin from Rowan and Martin to introduce me as the last act. And Dick says to me backstage, I have no idea who you are and I've never seen your act. Tell me what I should say.
Good. He's got to help you out, right? That's awesome.
So, that worked out fine. Then I kept auditioning. I have so many stories that you're bringing on, Anthony, that we've never spoken about. So I had a friend who was a producer on the Mike Douglas show, and he was amazed. I did an audition tape. This is another thing. So I was working on Truth or Consequences as a writer, and I had the guts to ask Bob Barker to go to the Magic Castle and introduce me and record this as what they call now a sizzle reel, but nobody knew what a sizzle reel was back then. So I sent this videotape to my friend Bert Dubrow at the Douglas show, and he said, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I can't believe Barker did this. I'm going to put you on the show, and I'm going to have David Brenner introduce you." Okay, great. When are you going to do it? In 2 weeks. Okay. 2 weeks go by. I don't hear from Bert. I keep calling the Mike Douglas show, and they keep saying, Bert will get back to you. Bert will get back to you. Bert will get back. Bert never gets back to me. Okay. Right. I don't have his home number. There were no cell phones. How do I get a hold of Bert Dubrow? So I'm looking at TV Guide, and I see that David Brenner is doing the Tonight Show tonight. Okay. Now, this is long before 9/11. So I drove over to NBC and walked right backstage at the Tonight Show. So I dressed and said, David Brenner. I knocked on the door. I said, "Hi, my name is Marc Summers, and you're going to introduce me on the Mike Douglas show." He said, "First of all, I have no idea who you are." He said, "You do stand-up?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I've never heard of you. Who do you do for? Your grandparents in the living room? What are you talking about?" He said, "I got to go do the spot. Can you stick around after the show and we'll talk?" And I said, "Sure."
Crazy.
And so he does the Tonight Show. I go back afterwards, and he goes, "So tell me the story." And I said, "Well, Bert Dubrow said he's going to put me on the Mike Douglas show, and you're going to introduce me." He said, "First of all, Bert Dubrow no longer works at the Mike Douglas show. He got fired." Okay.
That's why I didn't hear back from him.
That's right. He never got back to me. And he said, "I don't know anything about you. So why would I get, so the fact that I would drive to the NBC, that I would knock on doors, that I would ask questions. I had ice water in my veins, and nothing would stop me.
And you still do, by the way.
I guess I do, maybe not quite as much, but I'm a little more comfortable than I was back in those days. But I think it takes that, Anthony, you and I talk about this all the time. You're either cut from that cloth or you're not. And, for people to sit back and expect the phone to ring, somebody in Hollywood said to me something that stood true. He said, a lot of talented people I know can't get arrested, but the ones who aren't as talented, who are more aggressive, are more successful. And I think that's the situation.
If I had a penny for every time somebody said, I thought of that show, Hotel Impossible, 100 times.
What did you do about it?
The difference between you and me is you may have done a better job, but I actually did something about it. But when did you get the call for the Tonight Show? I want to know,
with Jay Leno, you mean when I did that?
When that whole thing happened, yeah.
Okay. I had a publicist who handled a lot of stand-up comics, and here's the way the industry works. He was handling Jason Alexander at the time. Jay had just taken over the Tonight Show, and they wanted Jason as a regular. And so he called up the Tonight Show and said, "You want Jason as a regular? Put my client Marc Summers on television."
Good.
Okay. So I call and I do the interview. We were on the phone for about an hour. I don't think the guy had any inkling of ever put me on, but I know how to sell myself. And he went, "Man, we're going to put you on." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." So when? In 3 weeks. 3 weeks come and goes, nothing. For the next year, I get booked and unbooked, booked and unbooked, booked and unbooked. And I stopped telling people I was on the Tonight Show because people thought I was lying.
Yeah, of course.
And finally, the phone rings and he goes, "Come hell or high water, you're on this, whatever, October 14th, I think it was, October 14th, 1994, I think it was. You're going to be on." I said, "Okay, great." So the limo comes to pick me up. As we're driving on the Ventura Freeway, it gets a flat tire. Okay. It's like, I'm not meant to do this show. What the hell is going on here? So the guy's changing the tire in the middle of the Ventura Freeway. We show up like 10 minutes before. Jay comes in the dressing room. "Hey, I'm sorry about what's been going on for the last year. I could see on the show and all that stuff."
And did you know Jay? Did you know Jay?
I knew Jay peripherally. We all did from the comedy.
Is he wearing denim?
Is he wearing? That man has a closet of denim, and he was very nice. And so Burt Reynolds was on the show that night, and Burt was going through a very tough book tour and was not happy. And Jay, the night before I was on, was saying some not so nice things in a comedic Jay Leno way, and apparently it pissed off Burt. So I was supposed to come on and do a magic trick. What I was going to do was I was going to cut and restore Jay's tie. Okay. Ooh. I was going to be segment 3. Well, Burt was so angry, totally unprepared, unplanned, that in the middle of Jay's monologue, Burt comes out with a pair of scissors and cuts Jay's tie off. Okay. Well, I'm not going to lie to you. The magic trick is used with duplicate ties. Right. Now, I don't know what else I'm going to do. I'm going to the producers saying, I can't do the cut and restore tie thing now because Jay has the last tie that matches the tie I'm going to replace. And all. So we're scrambling backstage trying to figure that out. And there was, if you go back and look at it, there was such heat and contention between Jay and Burt. So he was supposed to do segment 1 and 2. Well, they extended him to segment 3, which meant there was only one segment left. Backstage was Marc Summers and Carrot Top. And they decided to go to Carrot Top and put him on instead of me and bump me one more time. And my publicist went up to the producers and said, if you put Carrot Top on instead of Summers, Jason Alexander will never do the Tonight Show ever again. Guess what? They bumped Carrot Top. And the next thing I know, I'm walking out on stage. I think you have some video there. Are you going to play?
What we're going to do is we've got some stills because I'm really nervous that YouTube is going to ding us with copyright. It's happened before. So we're just going to go with some still pictures. So
okay. Well, if people
want to set it up and then we'll show the pictures.
Sorry, guys.
So I walk out and start my stuff. And for whatever reason, Burt hates me instantaneously and says, why am I only talking to a back? And I said, no, I can talk to you. And I had been a regular on a show called Win, Lose, or Draw that he was a co-creator, co-exec producer of, but apparently he didn't care and didn't remember it. And so it was contentious as hell. And I was talking about having obsessive compulsive disorder. And he said, who told you have OCD? And I said, my wife does. And by the way, I'm still married. Okay. Well, the whole audience went,
oh boy.
Whoa. You can go on YouTube and look at this stuff. And he decides to take a mug of water and pour it right on my crotch. Okay. Now I go back at him with my cup of water and he straight arms me. It's a porcelain cup, hits me right in the face. I thought he broke a tooth. And now you can see me kind of going, what's going on here. And Jay says, welcome to late night TV, Mark. And next thing I know, pies come out and it turns into a pie fight. Up to that point, Dave Letterman had beaten the Tonight Show and Jay Leno every night. The night I was on was the first night that Jay tied Dave. Okay. Dave never talked to me after that. Whole other story. But because he's a strange man.
And but a lot of people have accused that of being set up, and it was not set up.
I'm not, as I always say, I'm not that good of an actor. You know, once I was on a plane with, I digress for 2 seconds, with Don Rickles, and there's a classic Don Rickles thing where Don comes out and there's these Japanese women giving Johnny a massage, and it seemed all spontaneous. And I said to him, let me ask you a question. Was that spontaneous? He goes, no, Johnny called me that afternoon and said, I want to have some fun. That was a total setup thing. I didn't realize that until, many years after the fact. Ours was total reality. People say to me, where'd the pies come from? Well, because Jay wasn't beating Dave, they were willing to try anything, and they wanted a pie thing to happen. And Jay said, I don't want to do that kind of television. So, when people say, well, where did the pies come from? Well, they were backstage as props. And then Jay put the kibosh on it. So it was timing. It was.
Were they going to do pies with you and Bert?
Yes, he wanted to do something with me and Pies and Bert. And Jay said, no, I don't want to do that.
Before you guys pushed each other and started the fight.
Right. And, the next day, Jay calls me and goes, hey, what was going on between you and Bert? And I said, look, man, I looked at Bert as a heckler at the Comedy Store. I've been waiting to get on the Tonight Show my entire life. I wasn't going to let this a-hole screw it up for me. So that's why we were going, toe to toe. And I understand why you don't want to show it. But if anybody wants to just Google Marc Summers, Burt Reynolds Tonight Show, you'll see what I'm
I put the link up for everybody to watch.
It comes up in the top 10 late night show great moments consistently. And in some lists, it's number one. And it's funny. You were on Tonight Show once, you have probably the highest rated show, and it's in everybody's memory. You were on the Comedy Store years and years ago. Your name is on the billboard. Nickelodeon, you are the beginning of Nickelodeon, and you to this day are Nickelodeon. People still connect you back to that show. Then you go on and you do a show called, as a producer, Restaurant Impossible, which is one of the biggest shows. It's like, do you ever do anything that's small?
Well, I've been lucky, Unwrapped, certainly between me and Emerald, people think back in the day, and by the way, there would be no board without Emerald. But people think back in the day that Emerald was number one all the time. I was number one. I was Guy Fieri before Guy Fieri. Unwrapped was number one show, for many years. And still, by the way, trends every night on Discovery Plus.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, shows that I had
all these years later. How much fun is that looking back?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So anyway, it's been a fun career. It still beats working. And I just turned the big 7-0. I still feel like I'm 27, and I'm still playing and dabbling, and you and I go out to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We talk, we still plan, we have fun. There's me and Mr. Spielberg. That was the opening day of Nickelodeon Studios. Nicest man in the world, by the way.
That's pretty cool.
Wow, that's Steven Spielberg. That is so cool.
Yeah, Nickelodeon Studios was at the Florida Universal theme park for a while there, a good 10, 15 years when they opened. Yeah. I think they opened in 1989, give or take.
I think when we opened, let's see, we did, I think it was 1990, I think is when we opened.
1990. All right, cool.
Yeah, and that's now you talked about Unwrapped is one of my favorite shows ever. Everybody I speak to, it's one of those shows everyone says it's my favorite shows, but nobody talks about it. It's like when you mention it, everybody's like, oh my God, that's my favorite show. But it's like one of those secret things. Like we just watch it because it's that good. To me, like before Guy Fieri with his show, it was kind of like that show. Like you just watched it and you watched it all the time. You had it on in the background, and it was always. And I always told you, I think you're the best host by far on television. Not because you're my friend, because I think it's the truth. But I want to go back to something obscure that really means nothing, but I just want to clarify it in my head. Yep. I remember when Burt Reynolds did that show, Win, Lose, or Draw, but he produced it with the host who died young. What was his name?
Was that Bert Convey? Oh, Bert Convey. He died of a brain tumor. He was awesome.
Yeah, he was married to who?
I have no idea.
I think he was married to Convey. Anyway, I remember when they got the show, and I was fascinated that you were even involved in that show. You warmed up that show. That show lasted for a long time. Then he died of brain for a short time.
Yeah, he was only 57.
Yeah, he was also
very nice guy. He was a very sweet man.
Yeah, he seemed. So, okay, I'm going to boil it down for you, Mark. One moment outside of meeting me, the moment that changed, outside of the moment where you got on Double Dare, what was the moment that you would say? Because, again, my moment's Leo Rossi. At the Lucerne Hotel lobby, his script falls. I say, hello, sir. Can I help you? He helps me get my movie, helps me get my TV show, helps me get introduced to you. He changed my life. That was my moment. What was your moment?
I'm going to say something because I've had so many bizarre moments. At one point, Merv Griffin was doing an hour with Bob Hope. And at the end of the hour, he said to Bob, out of all the people who worked in the industry, and you've worked with everybody from, you name it, vaudeville, movies, television, theater, if you had to point to one person who made a difference in your life, who would it be? And Bob went, and he said, me. I was the one who motivated all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't think of one incident. I've met some fascinating people, the way Irvine and I got together, he kept chasing me and, we did dinner, we did restaurant, we did a lot of that stuff. It's been a lot of timing. It's been a lot of right place, a lot of right time. But I think because I've been so damn tenacious and I keep putting myself in situations where opportunities for some reason come to me, that I'm kind of responsible for whatever success I've had. Yes, I've crossed paths with many people and those people have opened doors. But then after those doors are open, it's up to me to make sure the door stays open and I become successful through that.
And you've said that to me because I've had some concerns about making sure that the people that help me, that I'm really loyal, which I am. And you were like, the first person you have to thank is yourself. There's a thing on TikTok that says, I want to thank me. I want to thank me for getting up in the morning. I want to thank me for showing up. I want to thank me for all the hard work. I want to thank me for really bringing it. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, that's right. Like because I'm always the person, this more, I'm always thanking people. I'm always appreciative. Like even the podcast, the reason it's blown up is because of Glenn and everybody around us that helps us. I'm always the first person to push it away from me and on somebody else. But when I really sit and I'm quiet, I feel the same way. It's like, I put myself in those positions.
Right.
My opening line when I lecture to colleges or, the chicken dinner events that I do is nobody woke up this morning today and said, I got to go get Marc Summers a job.
Right.
And I think that that's the case. Nobody cares about me. Nobody gets up today and goes, gee, what can I do for Marc Summers? I'm responsible for my own success, my own happiness, and people call me all the time and go, I don't know what to do. I'm depressed. I'm this and that. And so I'm more than happy to listen to what your problems are. But we are all responsible for our own happiness. Now,
that's right.
Do you need help? I'm going to be the first to tell you that during COVID, I've gone through major depression. And I've been working with a psychologist because I needed to figure out how to get out of this funk that I was in. I've never been in a global pandemic. You guys know I lived on planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden to be home for 2 years and do nothing, it was a shock to my system. I got on my first airplane last week to shoot a piece for Food Network in Austin, Texas. Was I a nervous wreck? Absolutely. But I went on a Wednesday and came back on a Thursday and we did it. And so it's opened the door for me to finally get my rear end out. But, I've been planning a vacation to Europe. We've been planning it and it got canceled twice due to COVID. And we were planning, it's about 6 couples and we got on a conference call the other day and I opened up by saying, hey, I don't think life is going to get any better than this. Okay. This thing's going to be around forever. And so we have to make a decision. If we get vaccinated and we wear our masks, I think we got to go out and live our lives. Otherwise, what's the point,
Yeah.
Right. And you'll be safe. And I remember those 2 years, and I remember conversations we've had where we both shared neither one of us are big sharers of feelings, and we both shared our feelings of kind of what was going through. I want to go back to what you just said. I'm doing a commencement speech this week, and Suzanne, our producer, is actually at the college as well. She's a doctor in hospitality. And I wrote a line, and you just basically, not to give away the speech, but you basically said what I wrote. Your success, the pursuit of your dreams, the way you live your dash is between the day you were born and the day you die, is yours and yours alone. Norman Lear, which I'm sure you have many Norman Lear stories, once said, put your dreams in the universe and the universe will conspire for your success. That's the truth.
That is the truth. You want to hear a Norman Lear story? I got one.
He's one of my all-time heroes.
So in case anyone Who doesn't know Norman Lear? You've got to look him up. He created all the best TV shows in the 1970s, and in his late 90s, continues to be a tour de force.
And shows that could never air today in this cancel culture.
All of the Family, Good Times, Jeffersons, all those kinds of shows. Wow. So
listen, when Mr. Jefferson called Archie a honky, I thought it was the best thing I've ever heard.
But the best episode ever was when Sammy Davis Jr. was on with Archie.
Oh, that was amazing.
That's when he gave
Do you know who wrote that episode?
You did.
No. Bill Dana. Remember Bill Dana, Jose Jimenez?
No.
Wow. We're at that point in our lives. Holy cow.
Yeah, I'm super geeky about all of this type of stuff. So
look him up. He's amazing. Anyway, I was the head page at CBS on many shows, and they decided to do a pilot called Good Times. And at the time, think about when this was, 1974-ish, I believe. They felt that Good Times was a black show, whatever the hell that means.
Right.
And
just because it featured a cast of black individuals.
Black people, which in 1974, I guess, was somewhat revolutionary.
Right.
And so the only audience that was going to be allowed into the show that day, and we would do 2 shows on All in the Family or Maude or Good Times, whatever, was you do a dress rehearsal at 4:30, and then you do, quote, the air show at 7:30. And so standing out in front of the studio were about 300 people. They all happened to be black because they wanted an all-black audience. Well, things were running very, very long, and the rehearsal just wouldn't end. And they soon realized that there was going to be no dress rehearsal, only an air show. So Mr. Lear came out and said to me, "Mark, come here." And I said, "Yes." Uh-oh. And he handed me a wad of $10 bills and said, "Do me a favor, go out and explain to these people." Now, they've been out standing for 3 hours, getting angrier and angrier. It was August, it was hot, everybody was sweating, and I had, when are we going in? When are we going in? Just a minute. And he said, "Ask these people, if I give them all $10, would they go next door to the farmer's market, which is across from Television City, and have dinner on me? And please come back for the show afterwards." And I said, "Mr. Lear, with all due respect, these people don't stand in line for 3 hours. If you gave me money to go have dinner, I'd go have dinner, and I ain't ever coming back." And he says, "Really? You don't think they're going to come back?" I said, "I don't know." So he said, "Just give them the money." So I went out and made the explanation. Everybody got angry. I handed money to everybody. About half the audience came back. The other half said, "Screw it, I'm not coming back." Right. They did the show that night and realized maybe this isn't a black show. Maybe it's just a show. And every audience after that was a mixed audience, not a black audience. So nobody knew even then how to handle these things, what was going on. But I will tell you that Norman Lear, I worked with a lot of producers. This is the nicest man ever, even back there. And funny, I ran into him a few years back at a lunch, and I went over and introduced myself. And I said, "I'm going to tell you a story, but you won't remember it." And he said, "Before you tell me the story, answer a question for me." And I said, "What?" He said, "Was I nice to you?" I said, "Mr. Lear, you were always nice to everybody." But it was a funny question. I thought that he even asked.
Wow. That's fascinating. And dude, you really do have, you came into Hollywood. When you think about when you first got into TV, it still isn't that old. But when you got in, it wasn't old at all. It was what, 30 years old?
Well, think about I Love Lucy, was in the 50s, and I got to LA in 73. So, 25 years after the fact.
Right.
And there I was working on the Carol Burnett show. I tell you, I worked on Sonny and Cher. I was on Sonny and Cher the last day they shot it. I could tell you stories from that day that were unbelievable.
Which one? I Love Lucy? You worked on I Love Lucy?
No, I worked on Here's Lucy.
Which
I worked on Here's Lucy. Sonny and Cher. And then I worked on Here's Lucy, which was the show that she did with Vivian Vance over at Universal.
So how was she? How was Lucille Ball?
The most professional human being you'd ever worked with in your entire life. And she knew everybody's lines. The whole script, if somebody went up on their lines, she would give them the lines, okay? And she didn't tolerate any bullshit at all, okay? If you didn't hit your marks and know your stuff, she would sort of reprimand you on the spot. But nobody was more professional. In fact, I still have a gift she gave me, a 1974 Christmas gift. It's an ice bucket with her caricature on it that says "Love Lucy" on it.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I'm a big Gail Gordon fan, who was her foil on that show.
He was on. We had Gail
on several shows with her, I think, too, right?
Yes, Lucille.
Oh my
Yeah, I
God.
got to work with the tail end of real show business, you know?
See, now you know why me and Glenn make a good pairing, because he knows all this obscure stuff. Like 90% of the conversation that you're talking about, like he's picking it up. I'm only picking up a little bit of
love
it.
it, man. This is one of the coolest conversations I've ever had.
You know what's interesting
About historic TV.
But you know what's interesting about anything? We'll keep it for TV. Is that what got you successful in 1973 is the same thing that gets people successful today.
Yeah.
Show up. You know, in the commencement speech, I talk about get on a plane, get on a boat, send a message in a bottle, do whatever you need to do, but do not send a resume and wait for somebody to call you, because they ain't coming.
I know it. I think I told you the story the other day that I was lecturing at this, international fraternity.
Oh, great story.
And this NBC woman got up and said, we've got these intern programs and you should all send us a resume. And so, please welcome our keynote speaker, Marc Summers. And I walk up, I said, raise your hand if you're going to send a resume to the ladies who signed it. Everybody raised their hand. Fantastic idea. All these people going for the same job. The odds of you getting it are slim and none.
Right.
And I had a girl stand up. I said, what are you going to do? And here's the problem. And I think I told you this, Anthony. I always say to the kids, don't start thinking about getting a job your senior year in college. Your freshman year in college is when you start looking for a job. But nobody knows this stuff. And it's like nobody teaches these kids what to do. And I know we've had this conversation before as well. I was working part-time helping kids at USC in their broadcasting stuff.
This is one of my favorite stories.
And the dean comes up to me and says, gee, you're fantastic. Would you teach a class here? And I said, yeah, I'd love to teach a class. What would you teach? And I said, I teach these kids how to get a job. And she goes, what? I said, yeah, none of these kids have a clue how to get a job. And she goes, oh, no. Yeah, we would never allow that to happen. We have a whole division here that tells kids how to get a job. I said, no, you don't. You think you do, but you don't. And if I went in there today and even asked a kid how to put a resume together or how to network or they couldn't do it. She goes, well, if that's your job, we're not doing that. We're never doing that. And so, that's not how you get a job. You don't send a resume. And now it's even worse because of COVID. You get interviewed online on Zoom. I did my first audition for my first Broadway show 2 years ago, right before COVID. And even then they weren't seeing you. I had to put my audition on tape. And it's like, I need to interact with you.
Tell the story, Mark. Tell the story about the girl that followed you into the parking lot. And then, tell that story, because I think that's fascinating.
Amazing. And so I always talk about the fact that, you've got to think of another way to get to people. You need to be smarter than the average bear. You need to be one step ahead of everybody else if you're going to be successful. So I got done with my speech and I get surrounded by, 1,000 kids, and they all want to talk to me. And here's my card and here's my phone number. Call me and can we interact and yada, yada, yada. And finally, one of the people in charge of the event said, do you want to get out of here? And I said, yeah. So they start to escort me out to my car, and sort of walking parallel with me is this girl. And I keep looking over to her, and I finally said, excuse me, can I help you? And she said, this was her line, I want to be your bitch. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, you said I got to come up with another way to get to people. So I'm telling you, I'll go wherever you are. I'll do whatever you do. I want to learn from you. I want to figure out how you do what you do. And will you educate me? So I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, well, I don't work on television. So I said, give me your phone number and your email address, and I'll get in touch with you. And I did. And she flew out to Philadelphia when I was producing Dinner Impossible and spent like a month with us on her dime. And I gave her carte blanche. She sat in meetings, pitch meetings, let her suggest stuff. And she learned as we did. It's sad, I don't remember her name, and she never stayed in touch with me. I wish she did. But I can pretty much guarantee you that this girl is successful because she was willing, out of those, let's pretend there's 10,000 kids who came to that event, she was the only one who figured out how to get to me and stand out. And that's what you got to do. You got to stand out.
Right. And I'm going to talk about something I normally don't talk about, but when you and I, we couldn't make it work. I was hoping that you would do Hotel Impossible. And just for clarity, and this kind of goes to the story of what I'm going to say, I created the name Hotel Impossible years before I met you, years before Restaurant Impossible was a thing. And I actually got the URL way before Restaurant Impossible and anything else. So I've been wanting to do Hotel Impossible for a long time. We meet, for whatever reason, we couldn't do the deal because of of your side, whatever it was. But we stayed in touch. And I remember finally I get picked up the show. We're about to go do it. And I don't know what the hell I'm doing. We have the format. I know I'm good at hotels and I'm just going to go do it. And I called you up and I said, hey, would you mind if I come and sat on on one of your shows in Philadelphia? You were doing Restaurant Impossible. And I sat there and you let me sit there for 2 days. And one of the things that you never really told me, I had to find out from other people, is you got in trouble because you're like, what the hell is this guy doing on the set? And some people, including the person that was, was the host, wasn't happy I was on the show. And to this day, that person thinks I stole his idea and I stole the format, which is completely bullshit. But I will say this. That you did teach me one thing.
What's that?
It was the greatest lesson I've ever learned on that show. So if he wants to accuse me of this, he's right. He was in the kitchen and he was about to talk to the chef off camera. You are not much taller than I am. You went down to this man who could crush both of us with one hand, grabbed him by the collar, physically grabbed him by the collar and pulled him out of the kitchen and said, now I'm in, what do they call that, Camera Village? I'm in upstairs.
Video Village.
Right. So you would think 10 years I would know that. You pull him by the collar and you say, how many times I got to tell you, don't talk to him till the camera's up. That changed. The reason Hotel Impossible was successful, and to this day, I can't walk anywhere without people asking me about it, is because of the moment I saw in that kitchen. I was like, oh, so when people would try to set me up, I would be you and be like, I can't. I'm not allowed until the camera goes up. I literally would let the producers go through hoops to make sure I never saw the owners, saw the hotel. If I saw an owner or a hotel, a producer was getting on a plane back home. And so it all came down to that moment. So I didn't steal anything. The one thing I learned is make sure I never talk to anyone unless there's a camera rolling.
The element of first time, you cannot duplicate that. You can't record it and then all of a sudden hope that you're going to duplicate that. It's never going to be as real as.
And I want to say this one other thing, that you gave me the greatest compliment I've ever had in my life. Here I am, a hotel manager, 25, 30 years. And I'm like, I just don't want to make rich people richer anymore. I love the hotel business, but I want to do TV. That's what I want to do TV. I want to teach people about the hotel business because it's such a great business. As you know, I want to ask you a couple questions about the hotel business before we let you go. But I came to you. We sat in the Algonquin Hotel. It was the place that I turned around with my team. I felt really comfortable. You made me feel comfortable. It was not more than 7 or 8 minutes. And do you remember the words you said to me?
No, what?
You looked me right in the eye and you go, don't know if we'll do the show with you, but you're going to get a show. Do you remember saying that to me?
No, but you know what? Here's the deal.
That changed everything for me because that gave me the confidence that you'll never understand. You literally looked me in the eye and said, you will get a show. You're going to get a show.
You are the sophisticated version of our friend, and he's done quite well. We can't knock anything the man has done, but your military background is similar. He wears jeans, you wear suits, but we all play that game in our heads about it. There's one show that got away that it's Hotel Impossible. I would watch that when you guys first started off, and I would get angrier and angrier that we didn't do that program because I wanted to put my touch on it. And I knew if you and I could work together, we could have done X, Y, and Z.
I would have saved 5 years of my life because my life is going to be 5 years shorter because the first 5 seasons, I didn't have you to protect me. I had to protect myself.
To be fair, Anthony, working with me is so delightful. You'll get that 5 years.
I was literally swinging I was cursing. I went on set. True story. First season, I put up a curse bucket. Anybody that cursed had to put $1 in it. Okay. First show, I put the most dollars in it and I took the bucket away. I never cursed in the hotel business. Very rarely would I use the F word or whatever. As soon as I got on that set, the F word came out of me like it was water. And you would have saved me. But I'm also going to show the not so nice side of Marc Summers because I just can't, throw in how wonderful and how much I love you. You called me up. And I've told this story before when you were doing your documentary. I told it in front of everyone. First, I insulted you by telling you didn't put me in your documentary, but you put all the other friends in. And then I said, which I understood. And then I said, do you remember what you said to me when I sent you the pilot before it was on TV? And now I'm nervous. My whole life is in this, financially, everything, because I'm giving up everything. And the words you said to me were, do you remember?
No.
That is a pile of shit. They
I really?
don't know their ass from their elbow. That is horrible. After I started to breathe again, because again, you said I have this professional decorum. I never lost it. I held it together because I asked your opinion, and I wouldn't even say you went out of your way to make sure you knew what I did a great job, but you did say it's not about you, it's the way you're being treated. That's a pile of shit. Dude, I hung up that phone. I probably, in my brain, cursed you out more than you've ever been cursed out in your life. And that was the motivation for me to get back on that set and rip everyone a new asshole.
I can only tell the truth. And
you changed everything, because that's when I still took a lot of orders I shouldn't have taken, but I realized that I'm the one that's going to look like the asshole. So you saw everything behind me that I don't understand why it's that good, and the format. I didn't understand it, right? I didn't understand what you were saying. To this day, I didn't understand what you were saying. That's not my point. My point is, whatever you're singing around me is not working for you. So I've got to make sure that everything around me feels like me. And I said this, and this is really what changed everything. I said, I don't know what he's seeing. I don't know what the audience is seeing. I don't know what Travel Channel is seeing. This is when I realized this. So I'm not going to obsess with what Marc Summers thinks. What I'm going to obsess with is, what does the general manager and the housekeeper think? If I can say true to making sure that general manager doesn't laugh at me in Delta Sky Lounge, or that housekeeper get mad at me when she's cleaning my room, that's the only thing I have to worry about. And that what you said really helped me define what I was going to do on television.
Well, you took charge because you knew who you were. And with all due respect to the people who were behind the scenes, they had never done that kind of show before. And it's not an easy show. I learned by doing as well. I mean, keep in mind, I had 90 episodes of Dinner Impossible before we went and did Restaurant Impossible. So I had a lot under my belt, and there is a learning curve. I'm sorry I was so harsh with you, but you know me.
No, it was
sounded like it was honesty that he needed to hear in order to be better.
Eric Long at the Waldorf Astoria, I won't tell you what he told me when I asked for advice, but it was horrific. And I didn't take his advice, but I never got mad at him. To this day, he's a good friend of mine. I never got mad at him because I asked your opinion. If you ask somebody's opinion, you got to be able to deal with it and then learn from it. So now let's get back to your love of hotels. Well, let's get to real quick.
Before we do that, I need to know, Mark, what would you have done differently with Hotel Impossible?
It would have been a learning curve. The way talent talks, the speed that they talk, the sincerity. And that's one thing. If you say nothing else about our friend here, he's the most sincere human being. And like me, he will never lie to you. Don't ask the question unless you're willing to get the answer. And if you're willing to get the answer, then you're all right. But, a lot of times people don't want to hear what you really have to say. And, I always say I have OCD and the next step is Tourette's. Every now and then I kind of feel I'm one step away from that because I just let shit fly. And I just say exactly what's on my mind. And I can't hold back. And if I don't think it's good, I'm not going to lie to you. And I did it with my kids as well. I'm sure they're going to be in therapy for the rest of their lives. But, I couldn't tell my son or daughter that they did something good if they didn't do something good.
Right.
And I just have treated life that whole way. And it's kind of worked for me. I'm sure a lot of people hate me, but what can I say?
Yeah, but you can't. It doesn't matter if people hate you for being honest. You have to be honest because at the end of the day, they need to hear this stuff. We can't.
It took 5 seasons to get where Mark would have gotten the first season.
Right.
It took me 5 seasons, but I had to initiate it. I asked Bruce, who I love, who's the president of the production company, we had to get rid of a lot of people, and then the new guy came in who actually did help save the pilot. Because it sucked, as you said, you saw the sucky one. He saved the pilot, and he came in on the 5th season and changed everything. And this is what he said. He goes, you were making a movie for 5 seasons. The lighting had to be right. You had to walk in the room right. Everything had to be right. He goes, I'm going to yell action, and you ain't stopping until I say cut.
That's the way you do reality TV.
And the first scene was an hour and a half nonstop scene of us in New Orleans with that young lady treating her housekeepers horrifically. And he said action, and all shit broke loose. And then I look at the camera going up the stairs and I go, you can't make this stuff up. And I remember, and they had to cut this out because they said, when are you cut? He goes, shut up, keep going. And we got the best scene. To this day, that was the best scene in Hotel Impossible history.
Awesome.
That was the moment that he let me be me, and I never stopped. And I was just asking someone who's a big fan. I can't remember where I was. I was in an airport or something, and he really understood every single episode. So I was like, okay, he's worth really trying to dig down, and because he's a real fan. And I go, what's your favorite show? He goes, I don't tell you my favorite show. I'll tell you my favorite scene. This is when Hotel Impossible changed for me. It was good, and then it got great. And he mentioned that scene. The 5th season, first episode, New Orleans. He goes, that is when I saw everything change for you. You would have done that first scene. You would have done the first episode.
The casting is always so important. You can't, I never did anything fake on reality TV. Everything that happened was real. Nothing was set up. You did the same thing. That's why it's good. That's why I have a hard time.
Fucking hard.
Well, yeah. But that's why I have a hard time working in this kind of world today, because the networks want to fake everything, and I can't do it. First of all, there's nothing better than the truth. Why are you making up crap? And so,
look, what's the number one to this day stands up as in top 10 most great moments in Tonight Show history? Right? It's you and Burt Reynolds almost beating the shit out of each other.
And whenever animals pooped on Johnny.
So real quick, Glenn, I'm going to tell you a story of how me and Mark realized how much he loves hotels. So he was saying, and you may not remember this, you were saying to me, hey, I know you're the hotel guy. You know everything in the hotel business. Yeah. But you don't know this hotel. And he goes, it's on the Upper West Side. And it's a beautiful hotel. It is literally lights out. It is this little tucked away hotel no one knows about. He goes, but the only mistake they make is that and I'll let you tell that. I'll let you tell the mistake, but I'll tell you what. So what he says to me, he says, but it's my favorite hotel. It's the only place I go to. And I know what's coming. He goes, it's called the Lucerne.
Lucerne.
Now, the Lucerne was the first hotel I was the general manager at.
And I love that place. So, every time I would do The View, I've been a regular on The View since 1999. That would be the hotel they would put me on. But I called Anthony. I said, there's only one thing that drives me crazy. They hang the towels above the toilet. So when you flush the toilet, all the stuff flies up and hits the towels. Who thought of that?
And I said to him, I said, I thought of everything for that hotel with my team. I never thought of that. And that was an interesting moment. But that hotel was the reason you stayed there is because it comes down to my wanting to be concierge. Columbia and ABC. Long story short, I'm not a salesperson, but I will get things done when it's impossible, right? And the young lady Laura, who's the sales manager, couldn't close the ABC deal. Now, on the Upper West Side at the time, all you had was ABC in Columbia. Those two companies will feed your business regardless of a recession, because students are going to learn, and ABC is going to do news and is going to do shows. So this was before COVID, right? And so I literally sold ABC myself with Laura and her team. And we got that. And I think to this day, they're probably still there. But that's why, because as a general manager, I was involved in everything. And you guys stayed there. It was the first time they ever had contestants and the producers in the same show, same hotel. Was what was Regis Philbin's show? Millionaire. We got that show too, and we put everybody in one hotel. And they said, listen, if anybody's ever on the same floor that we don't want on the same floor, you're done. And I went OCD on that and made sure that never happened.
But I'm going to be at the Wallace when I go back to New York next time.
Yes, the Wallace is now a great hotel on the Upper West Side from the same owner of the Lucerne Hotel. So the Wallace, I walked in the other day. It was gorgeous. We were actually going to do a podcast from there, but
I think it's going to get rescheduled.
rescheduling it. So you're coming in January, right?
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to try the hotel, and hopefully you and I are going to get together and have a conversation.
Sunday morning breakfast. We'll go. But before I go, Glenn, I'm sure you have one or two more questions. But I want to say this: whether it be Ryan Seacrest, whether it be Guy Fieri, and many others, when I saw your documentary about your life, every one of those two people and more tied their career to you. Each one of them said, without you, they don't have a career.
Well, that's very kind of them. The old thing is you open the door and then people run and do what they get. Look, Seacrest, I gave him a job on TV when nobody would give him a job on TV, and I helped him get Idol, but he'll never tell that story. But that's another podcast. And Fieri, he was a listener and still is, and he'll call me every now and then. Go, hey Summers, this is going on. What should we be doing? And he's like, these people are like you. They're just people. This new podcast idea that I'm working on, which we've recorded 2 already, and who knows if it's ever going to happen, is about people watching guys like you or guys like Fieri or, people on Broadway or movie, and they go, boy, those people are so lucky. And the reality of it is, it ain't luck. It's working your ass off. And, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yep.
And so the whole point of my podcast will be overcoming obstacles. And once you want to go to where you're going and you hit that wall, what makes you either stop or jump over the wall and become successful? And I did a great recording the other day, not because I was great, it was because my guest was great. Anthony Ramos. Anthony Ramos is kicking ass and taking names right now. He is doing the new Transformers movie. He did In the Heights. He was in Hamilton. I met him. I decided after overcoming cancer that the one thing I never did was I want to be on Broadway. And what was the way I was going to get there? And I did summer stock, and you were nice enough to come out, and did Grease. God, we've known each other a long time. And Anthony Ramos was an 18, 19-year-old kid in the chorus. And we used to sit and watch him because he was always the first one in and the last one out. And we used to say, that kid's going to be a major star. Why? Because he lived in the projects. He wanted to get out of the projects. He was talented as hell. He had a focus, and he worked his plan and planned his work. And guess what? At 29 years old, yeah, he is just doing amazing. And I can't wait for people to hear this podcast because he opened up to me and said stuff. And besides being talented, as those of a particular persuasion, he's a real mensch. He did something for me. And this, I get touched every time I do it. I was touring doing Double Dare on the road right before COVID. We closed again. We did 70 shows in 18 months. And I go to the Long Island show that night, and who's in the audience but Anthony? Anthony came out by himself. I don't even know. I was living somewhere in Manhattan, took cars, trains, and automobiles to get there. Comes backstage, doesn't just come in and say, hey, nice job, Mark, or whatever. He sits there for an hour and talks to me about the show and life and his family. And he says to me, how's your cancer? And I said, I got a little repercussion. I'm back on chemo, one thing after another. He says, come here. And he gathered everybody who was in my dressing room. We held hands, and it was like a prayer session. He like preached off the top of his head and sounded like, a 60-year-old, guy who's been doing this forever. And I talked about that on this podcast. It was such an emotional thing for me that A, he even cared, and B, that he was able to do that. And I've never had anybody do that before. And that was a magical moment in my life that somebody actually did that. So, it's the weird things, the friendships, and the fact that a 29-year-old guy could be friends with a 70-year-old guy. I had dinner the other night with my friend who was writing a new Broadway show, Drew Gasparini. He is doing why can't I think of the show with the karate and all that stuff? Doggone it. And he's 33, and half my friends are half my age. And right. I find it fascinating to me, as my wife finds fascinating to me, that what do these young people see in our relationship? And I don't know, I'm very childlike, I'm very immature, but for some reason I have these bizarre relationships with people half my age, and it keeps me young, by the way.
That's awesome.
Karate Kid.
Birth of the Dragon or Karate Kid?
Doing Karate Kid, he said, doing the music for Karate Kid. Broadway next year.
Can I give it a little insight?
Yeah.
Why people are fascinated by you and want to be your friend? one, you make us feel like the most important person in your life. Because when I sit with you, I still have those moments like, does he know who I am? I'm only Anthony Mark. Like I'm like I can't give you anything. I can't help you. And like when someone can't help you and you're still their friend, tells you there's a real friendship. Number one, and number two, your curiosity is insane.
Yeah.
Your curiosity is number one of anybody I've ever met. I'd say there's another person I know whose curiosity is pretty good too at an older age. He's my age, more my age, but your curiosity is second to none. And you're like, what happened? Like you're that kid. It's like, what? Okay, what do you mean I can't move that curtain? Why? Just tell me why. All right, I won't move it, but just tell me why. Give me a good reason why. And when you give me the good reason, I kind of have that a little bit too. When you give me the good reason, I'll have that. I just had that a little bit with Dr. Producer Suzanne. We're doing something in Florida, and she saw a part of me that she hadn't seen before. I just want to know why. And I said it in a pretty aggressive way. And I was just like, you cannot tell me this cannot happen. Thank God it's happening because she's wonderful. Suzanne, you can come on and wave if you want. But like it's like I am kind of curious like you is like, just tell me why. And once you tell me why, it's like failing, right? I will do everything to win. Legally, morally, I will do everything to win. When I lose, I lost. It's over. If I think I could have done one thing differently, I'm going to learn from it. And I'm going to now win next time. What pisses me off, and I've said this before to you, and I've said to a lot of people, is when we got tapped on the shoulder, 108th episode, season 9, which you know of all people, how many people get 9 seasons in 108 television shows?
Very few.
Very few. There's only 200 in the history of television. I checked.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. So only 200 shows that had over 9 seasons. Okay. And I'm one of them, or over 8 seasons. I'm one of them. That when somebody taps me on the shoulder and says, Anthony, no more Hotel Impossible, I was ready for that moment because the last show we did was the best show we did.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all I ask of anybody around me. That's what you ask of. It's like the best show better be the last show. And it was.
I guess that's it for our series. Damn it.
So Glenn. So what question do you want to ask Mark before
did you also get Brian Dunkelman on American Idol?
Oh,
no, I never even. I think I did meet Brian once, but no.
Dude, listen, I hate to say it because there by the God, grace of God go I. That was a moment. And let's talk about those moments, right? Because during the show, when you did all your runs, be honest, isn't there a time where you think you understand what's going on and you're grateful for what's going on, but you just don't get what's going on? Do you ever have that moment?
About every day of my life. Yeah. I mean, there's kind of no explanation. So much of it is timing. Double Dare was successful. They did research that kids live vicariously through their parents watching Price is Right, and they didn't have their own show. So here comes Nickelodeon. The show's on at 5:30 Monday through Friday. Moms would say, go watch your show and I'll finish making dinner and afterwards we'll have dinner. So 5:30 Monday through Friday, Nickelodeon's this new thing. It's all about timing. I've had 2 great opportunities: Double Dare and Unwrapped. Unwrapped, right place, right time. Double Dare, right place, right time. And the way I got Unwrapped was a mistake too. I had taken a dear friend of mine in, Roseanne Gold. I was pitching her as a chef on a series, and they said, well, why don't you do a show for us? And Food Network was in the infancy stage. Why would I do a show on Food Network? I don't even know how to turn on an oven. And so, they pursued me. I pursued them. One thing happened to, so timing, and right place, right time, and the universe being what it is. But you have to take advantage when those opportunities open up, because if you don't, you're a damn fool. And I think it's experience. There's Roseanne. She's fantastic. Still a dear friend. James Beard Award winner like 3 or 4 times. So once again, be persistent, be passionate. My whole life, Anthony, your whole life, Glenn, I don't know you that well, but I'm going to assume you're working with this guy. It's all about passion. If you wake up every morning and don't have passion, what the hell is the point? Now,
I talk about that in my speech a little bit, and I incorporated this word because I'm starting to learn it's passion, but it's got to be discipline. the passion, a lot of unsuccessful people have passion. If you look at every Hall of Famer, right, or you whether it be football, basketball, or baseball, are you telling me those are the only Hall of Famers walking around for baseball, football, and basketball? There are millions of people in the Hall of Fame on those sports, but they never had discipline.
Yeah.
So there's somebody a lot more talented than Derek Jeter, because Derek Jeter wasn't that talented, but his discipline was insane.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And, we could have a 7-hour show on Pete Rose and, should he be in the Hall of Fame and all that other kind of good stuff.
Why don't we just go to Mandalay Bay? Because he's usually over at the sports card shop and just ambush
I
him.
played poker with him. I played poker with Pete Rose at one of the casinos in Vegas. Yeah.
Nobody was more passionate than this man. Okay. Nobody played the game with more intensity. Nobody was better at what he did. And I just get sick when I realize that this man, he may get the Hall of Fame when he's dead. What's the point? Put him in, for Christ's sake. It just makes me so angry. But that kind of passion, I don't find that much anymore. And, I know they're telling us we got to get done here. But, when I grew up, there were 8 teams in the American League, 8 teams in the National League. They were still traveling by train. There were really not a lot of West Coast things going on there. And when you woke up in the morning, you knew that Ted Williams was going to be on the Boston Red Sox his whole time. Now it's all about money. There's no loyalty. And so the feelings are totally different. When you wake up this morning and you find out that Dave Ortiz got traded from Minneapolis to Boston, and, somebody else may offer $1 million more and he may go. It's a different industry.
When Anthony Zito got traded to the Yankees or the Mets, I was like, what the hell's he doing?
Yeah.
It's like Anthony Zito, and it was like, let's pick up Anthony Zito for a year. It's like, what?
It's not the same. And so money has changed everything. It drives people, I think, in the wrong direction. I understand you got to take care of your family, but the loyalties, but on the same token, the management is not loyal at all. They started that whole Moneyball thing.
But don't you think if you look at Pete Rose, who I think should be in the Hall of Fame,
yep,
it kind of goes to the example of what we're talking about. What comes first, passion or discipline? He was passionate. He was nuts, but was he disciplined? Right? Derek Jeter came to New York, which is the hardest market. It's not even arguably. It is the hardest market in baseball to play in.
Yeah.
Never gets married, never has children. Dates every supermodel and celebrity ever known, okay? No one ever knows about it. Is at clubs, no one ever hears about it. Shows up every morning, is there before everybody, leaves before everyone, leaves, gets married, has children, buys a team. That is discipline, because he knew if he got married and had a kid, he'd be in trouble. He knew that if he didn't leave the club at 1:00 instead of 4:00, he wouldn't be able to play. He is, to me, the epitome of discipline.
Oh boy, we could do endless podcasts on this. I got to say one thing. When COVID started, the whole world wanted me to do podcasts, and I did hundreds of them. And then I started getting requests, and I would say to people, if you come up with 5 questions that have never been asked, I'll do your podcast. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. So I stopped doing these things for a while, needless to say. Not because you're my friend, not because I love you. This is the best freaking podcast I've ever been on in my entire life.
Yeah, baby. And wait, and next time you're on, I'm gonna make a deal with Anthony and get to talk. So it's gonna be a great show.
You know what it is? It's your passion, and we're just good friends, and we could go on for another 4 hours.
Listen, I love when Anthony has his friends on, because we really dig deep. We really get an understanding of what you're all about. And Mark, you are one cool man. I really hope that we can get you back on here at another time.
And Mark, Glenn, can I say this?
Uh-oh.
And I don't mean this. I just like Glenn always wanted to do a game show, right? Tell him about your aspirations.
I too grew up watching all of those game shows and something like that, right? And I'm like, there's nothing I would like more than to do a game show. I would love to be able to say, and we'll be right back after this commercial break. That is like my biggest freaking dream.
And you would be very, 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 very good at it. But Mark, to talk about podcasts, Glenn, tell him when you did your first podcast. You're gonna fall off your seat.
I guess we're talking about 11, 12 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
You knew what it was.
Yeah, I started getting into them really early. I thought they were really cool. And quite frankly, I got tired of writing articles because I was like, hospitality journalism and stuff. So I'm like, I gotta take advantage of this. I don't want to write anymore. And I wound up doing over 100 shows at this old job I had before I started this business 6 years ago in 2 weeks. So
Well, that's why you're so damn good, man. You just,
thanks,
you
man.
know.
I really appreciate that. We're well over 500 episodes, and I think we just hit 550 of No Vacancy Live here every day, Monday through Thursday, noon time Eastern.
And he found it, and he found the secret to me. And this is going to sound funny, and it's going to sound like a throwaway comment, and it's not. It's not. And you know me, and he knows me, and so you know this is true. We made a deal, and the deal was this simple: I do nothing. I show up 3 minutes before the podcast. And I show up and I stay a few minutes after, and I am my
few minutes is generous.
And my responsibilities are done. I will buy you dinner every place we go for the rest of your life, and I will stay true to my word, no matter how busy I am or what I'm doing. I will show up for you. I will be here. I promise. And it's worked.
All right, Anthony's taking off tomorrow and Thursday, just so everybody.
However, when my friend here decides, and the reason I don't feel guilty anymore is because he is obsessed with, all their fans are obsessed with them, with with Fish, the band Fish. He's obsessed with them. Do you even know
me tonight on Fish Radio, Sirius XM?
So he goes off for days at a time and goes to Fish. So do you know who Fish is, Mark?
Of course I do. I know who Fish is. Absolutely. But I'm a James Taylor guy. I'm old, you know.
He's obsessed with them. So from time to time, we have things to do that we can't be here. But I also did something very smart too, knowing that he is the brains of the operation. When I'm not around,
I thought good luck, but I'll take
he can do the show without me. But when he is not on, I will not do the show without him. Because then I have to work, and I refuse to work. What?
Didn't Fish break up, I thought?
That was 2003 or 4. They're a little drug issue, but they got back together in 2009. Have been playing ever since. I've actually been to 7 shows so far this year, and I got 2 more. So I'm excited.
But
the problem was my friends double dared me to go. So.
But Mark, I was offered, or Glenn was he was moderating a panel for high-end designers in the hotel business at the Barclay Intercontinental Hotel, which they've done a really beautiful job of renovating it. I said, hey, we're going to do the podcast. Let's do it live. Since you're there, I'm home. So let me just drive in and go. So he did 2 things one thing he did great. One thing he'll never do again.
Never do again.
Okay. Now a lot of people know me, right? A lot of people know me. I'm not as famous as a lot of people think I am. Just like, I'm sure I can mention Marc Summers in probably not your name, but a lot of people's name, they won't know. Well, high-end designers in the hotel business don't necessarily know who I am. So he comes in, as soon as I walk in, he goes, oh, ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Mercuri. One person clapped. Okay. So that was I sit down. I'm trying to hide in the corner, right? Because one, I don't like being introduced anyway, but I'm hiding in the corner, and I watch this man take these very successful high-end designers who could give a shit if he lived or died, know nothing about him, and he absolutely destroyed that room.
Thank you.
Nice.
He did an amazing job. So, he has been honing this for 12 years when nobody else was doing this. And that's why, I think this partnership works. He knows how to do this.
Listen, I just want to be on a set where people go, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies.
So, right. Well, somebody else is doing that. Shut up. But to the point, I don't want any noise in my house. So I have to go in the corner and put these screens up. Now, I have beautiful areas in my house I can do this from, but you'll hear noise. So in order for me to get his green screen, because that's the most beautiful green screen you'll ever see, I have to get lights and I have to do work every time to set it up, because where I'm at, I have to set it up every day. I refuse to do that. So I'd rather do this, but at least be true to my word and not get tired of the podcast and continue to do the podcast, because after 550 shows, I guarantee you, if I had any responsibility of any real work, I would have stopped doing it a long time ago. So thank you, Ryan.
It's a great marriage there. Happy holidays to you guys. I look forward to the next time. And Anthony, I'll see you in January.
Yeah, man. Take care. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Marc Summers, great meeting you too. This has been so much fun. You are awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Oh, right, man.
I win best guest ever.
I know. That was really great. Hey, maybe we'll have to rerun this over the holidays because, we got to come up with some best of shows. And while I'm thinking of it, if there are any suggestions that you guys have out there for us to rerun over the holiday week, any shows that stuck out to you, in particular guests that stuck out to you. And I know that you guys are all going to be gathered around the Sirius XM radio tonight as I make my grand debut hosting Crowd Control on Fish Radio. I tell some stories.
What?
Some of my favorite songs, 7 p.m. tonight, baby.
That's a big deal, right?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Wait, it's on Sirius XM 29. I gotta go listen. What time?
7 p.m.
And you're hosting the whole show?
I am for an hour, but I recorded it 11 months ago, dude.
What?
Yeah, and I've been waiting for it to air, and they've been ignoring me. And I got an email yesterday saying it's airing tonight at 7 p.m.
Okay, I gotta listen to
So
it.
again, if there's any references to there in regards to the pandemic, I don't remember exactly what I said about us hoping to get together again eventually in the future. It was a year ago.
But you know what? I want to kind of just take a second because I got to run too. I'm sure you got to run and Suzanne's got to run. But and Suzanne, you can pop on.
Yeah, Suzanne, if you need, if you need to go on the world's longest show, I mean, you could just take off.
It is the world's longest show today, and I have lots of things that Anthony's making me do, so I've got to go.
You got to get out of here.
I love
Anthony's
you
going
all.
to continue to beat Joe Rogan. See you later.
No, but what's interesting to go ahead, bye, Suzanne. What's interesting to me, I hope people take this away from listening to Mark. The man just turned 70. Who has more energy?
Yeah.
Me,
right.
you, or Mark?
Oh, it has to be him because I'm exhausted right about now.
He is, but dude, I've seen him, and I can't tell you every story, but the man gets in the room.
Yep.
He will not be denied. Period. End of story. Is he still here? Is he still listening?
He's
to me?
gone.
Right. He will not be denied. He's undeniable. You may not like him sometimes because he will get in your face and get in the room. And now every single person's got to understand Marc Summers became Marc Summers because I asked him, what was the secret? Who was the person? And he said, it was me. Mm-hmm. And that sounds egotistical. It sounds arrogant, but it's not. Most people don't give themselves enough credit. You hadn't given yourself enough credit. I think finally you're starting to give yourself.
I'm trying to, but we've talked about that a lot. It's always been an issue with me. And since COVID and turning 50 and stuff like that last year, everything's happened. Now I'm finally giving myself more credit. But that it's funny you should say that because I always think it's interesting when you see the Grammy winners and the Oscar winners and stuff like that. And they're always thanking higher powers and everyone else. I'm like, you did it. It's your hard work. It's your talent.
Look what he said about Anthony Ramos. 29 years old.
Amazing.
Now, I've been in conversations. I kind of knew Mark was going through another cancer battle recently before anybody else knew outside of his family. So we're pretty close friends. And it was horrifying. I never thought on getting on a plane or even if I saw him in his dressing room of doing that. I never had the guts to do that. And to get Marc Summers emotional, to almost cry on our podcast, doesn't happen. He's not a crier. And so that 29-year-old, the reason he's successful is because he can make a 70-year-old Marc Summers who's hard as nails cry.
That's amazing.
That's the secret of the success. He decided, I'm in this room. Mark probably needs some prayer and some support. I'm going to give it to him. I'm not going to be embarrassed. I'm not going to think he's going to deny me. I'm going to do it. And if I look stupid or he doesn't accept it, I'm going to take that chance. That chance, think about it. I'm very good friends with him, and I would not do that because I would feel I'm embarrassing him or I would feel insecure about that.
Right. Yeah. Anthony, this has been such a fun show. Listening to all those stories from the two of you was really, really cool. You know?
Yeah.
I'm going to miss you the rest of this week.
What's that?
I'm going to miss you the rest of this week.
So what's the, okay. And next week, are we doing next week or no?
Yeah, next week we're doing 3 days next week, and then we're going to take a week off, everybody, for the holidays. So yeah, I'm looking at the calendar right now.
Are you home for the holidays?
I am.
Yeah,
I feel like I should burst out into that Christmas song. Home for the holidays. All right, guys. One last tip. If you like Mark's stories about the early days of comedy clubs from the 1970s, Showtime had a great show on for 2 seasons called "I'm Dying Up Here," and it kind of takes place at a place that's sort of supposed to be the Comedy Store. It takes place at a place called Goldie's with a strong female owner who is Mitzi Shore and all the comedians that came through there. So check out the show. It's very interesting about how all of that worked. Of course, there's a lot of drama and drugs and all that.
They did a documentary about it recently.
Yes, also on Showtime, a 5-part series all about the evolution of comedy from that club.
And I think it was not great. I think it was good, but
I haven't seen it.
I wanted more. Like I got more out of a 1 hour Joe Rogan talking about it.
Yeah.
Like when he was Marc Summers' name is on the Comedy Store.
That's insane. I had no idea he had anything to do with stand-up comedy until he said so on this show.
But it's on the Comedy Store with Mitzi, who's crazy.
Yeah.
She was a crazy person. And that he probably wasn't that great. Listen, I love Joe Rogan. I love a lot of his podcasts, but he's not a great comedian. He's not the best comedian I've ever heard. I'll listen to Sebastian any day.
Yeah.
But that he grinds every day. He grinds and grinds and grinds and grinds. That he grinded enough to be a regular and get his name on a Comedy Store.
Yeah.
Dude, I had no idea. And he was all the age of 29?
It's crazy. I think he's maybe even a few years younger than that. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And then goes on to hang out with Norman Lear. He was there the day Good Times. He was given the $10 to go online to get these people dinner. There's nobody that has more story. Ryan Seacrest, Guy Fieri, Anthony Melchior, everybody. He touched everybody.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Let's wrap this up in an hour and 40 minutes, Anthony. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. What a great show. I'll be back tomorrow. We've got an interesting guest tomorrow who runs a hospitality tech firm, but is also a world-renowned cricket player. And then on Thursday, we got the one and only Bruce Ford talking about the construction pipeline. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're going to have a tough time topping this one, though. I hate to undersell my own show.
Unlike you, I've got to try. So I'll be back tomorrow, everybody. Remember, just like Mark's attitude, you've got one life. So blaze on. And wait, hold on. Listen to our show on audio. Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. You know where to go. He's at Anthony Hotels. I'm out traveling land. And just like Marc Summers said, you've got one life. So blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
I'll see y'all tomorrow. Anthony will see you next week.